Welcome back to the Game Collection. I am SuperDerek, and this is Breath of Fire 5, Dragon Quarter. I don't know what I was expecting, but surely it wasn't this. What did I get though? Well, what did I get? Breath of Fire is a series that I've come to love. It's a series with a lot of traditions that carry over from game to game. It's home to some of the best pixel art on several consoles that I've ever seen. It's got amazing battle systems that are fun to play and epic stories that are just amazing to experience. But what if I told you that Breath of Fire 5 breaks tradition with each of these games in just as many ways as there are traditions to be broken? Well, that is what I got. That is what we got in 2003 with Breath of Fire 5. Breath of Fire 5 takes place in a separate timeline according to Capcom. Humanity seems to have dug itself into a hole, both literally and metaphorically. In order to escape the desolated world above, humanity fled the surface and now live a kilometer deep into the earth. Society is a technological dystopia governed by an oppressive caste system where people are no better than their potential, determined genetically at birth. In this story, we play as Ryu, a ranger grunt from the lowest caste of society. As if by fate, Ryu meets a winged mute girl named Nina, who he must bring to the surface in order to save her life. Ryu is not a dragon in this game, but rather is a human, and through some bizarre circumstances, is able to channel the powers of a dragon, but at great personal risk. If Ryu uses that power too much, the D counter goes up to 100% and game over, effectively putting a time limit on the game. If there is a theme in Breath of Fire 5, it would have to be the breaking of tradition. Ryu is not a dragon, and Nina is not a princess, and her wings are not natural. Ryu is not a silent protagonist, and Nina is mute. There is only one other party member, and she barely has a personality or backstory of her own. But those are just the traditions of the Breath of Fire games that this game is breaking. Within the game, you could argue that the main goal of the game is to break an unending cycle. The Soul system is a gameplay mechanic that you could compare to a Game Plus mode that you're all but required to use mid-game and start over until you're able to come back powerful enough to get past your previous roadblock. The Soul system also affects whether or not you are shown certain plot points and restricts your access to some areas. This means that you will need to play the game until you can progress no further, start over, and try again. That is the cycle that you are trying to break. This mechanic alone accounts for probably the majority of people's issues with the game, and understandably so. It's frustrating to be forced to restart the game every time you get to a point you can't progress past. And it's boring to have to play through the same areas time and time again. I mean, who puts a time limit on a game that forces you to restart every time you fail? I mean, that's weird. That's Majora's Mask. That's not... Well, that's completely different. Majora's Mask was an action-adventure game where you went back in time and didn't lose everything. You kept your items and hearts and, well, I guess you do carry over some things from restarting in Dragon Quarter, but Majora's Mask, you can access new areas if you get far enough before restarting. I guess that's kinda like how you can access blocked off areas in Dragon Quarter with enough D ratio, I guess. But well, no, because that's still completely different, because Dragon Quarter is far more linear than Majora's Mask. And that's why it fails. Majora's Mask was a large and expansive game. Dragon Quarter takes place in a bunker with narrow hallways. It feels constrictive and claustrophobic. It feels like an underground dungeon crawler where you're never really even given any sort of a reprieve. What? Was that Dark Cloud? What the hell? Am I seriously supposed to just sit here and let you compare Dark Cloud to Breath of Fire 5? No, the two are completely different because, well, for starters, Dark Cloud is actually a fun game to play. Because it's got a cool system for building a town and with shops. And Dragon Quarter has this weird battle system where you don't even have magic points. You start off each round with a set number of points that you can use to attack or use magic skills, which use different amounts of those points depending on the strength of the attacks. Now wait just a damned minute here. No, none of that. You're trying to compare Dragon Quarter to Chrono Cross? Are you insane? How dare you? You can't go around comparing Breath of Fire 5 to good, amazing games. No, that's ridiculous. That's insane. I can't believe. I need to sit down. Okay, it's true. Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter has a lot of things in common with some really good games out there. The only problem is that none of those good games are other Breath of Fire titles, and I think that really hurts the game. As a result, the last Breath of Fire game we got wasn't really a Breath of Fire game at all. Breath of Fire 5 is often just called Dragon Quarter, for good reason. As a follow-up to the other Breath of Fire games, Dragon Quarter falls short, but on its own, well, let's finish up this review. The gameplay of Dragon Quarter can be enjoyable. I think that the AP system was a good choice, but I wish moving around didn't really require so much AP. The battle system felt very tactical, and finding creative ways to dispatch enemies quickly is pretty much mandatory, unless you want to sink a ton of time into the game leveling up. I dislike that you are punished for using your dragon powers in this game because using them feels really fun and satisfying, but it has to be used as little as possible in order to make it to the end of the game. The story of Dragon Quarter is sufficiently interesting. It plays out sort of like a mystery that unravels as you make your way through to the end of the game. Nobody really comes off as being purely evil or purely good, except for maybe Nina, who makes a believable, pathetic damsel in distress. Some of the bad guys are very likable, and some of your friends are completely unlikable. You know, kinda like real humans in that regard, I guess. Dragon Quarter ditches that beautiful, pixel-perfect art and isometric views of all the previous games that came before it, in favor of cel-shaded 3D models. The characters are designed simply, but they look very cleanly done. The bunker in which the game takes place is detailed and varied enough that you do at least feel a sense of progress as you make your way to the surface. The voice acting in Dragon Quarter is pretty good too, even though it's just kind of sprinkled in here and there. That which is there is in Japanese with subtitles, and the music is also pretty good, especially the battle themes. Dragon Quarter was the last game bearing the Breath of Fire title to be released in the United States. It can easily be picked up for about $10 or less. I picked up a sealed copy for about that price just for the purpose of this review. When the game came out, it was met with mostly positive feedback from game critics, who praised the game for being new and innovative in a time when turn-based battle systems were a talking point to show how stagnant the Japanese RPG market has become. Which raises a pretty important question. Did mainstream game reviewers kill the turn-based RPG? Well, that's kind of getting off topic. There is a new game on the horizon for mobile platforms donning the Breath of Fire title. From what I understand, it'll be a massively multiplayer online game which features neither Ryu nor Nina. It's hard to remain positive, but I'm going to reserve judgment until I've had a chance to play it. Dragon Quarter is a pretty fun game to kill some time with, but it hurts to know that this is the game we got instead of a real Breath of Fire game. Breath of Fire fans might not be able to set aside this fact in order to be able to see the good things that this game has to offer. The Breath of Fire series is an excellent collection of games, Black Sheep and all. Each game actually brings something important to the series. Breath of Fire 1 had its newbie-friendly simplicity. Breath of Fire 2 had an excellent cast of memorable characters and backstories and side stories. Breath of Fire 3 has that literally epic story that could fill a book. Breath of Fire 4 is the audio-visual powerhouse of the bunch that perfected the pixel. And then there's Breath of Fire 5, the game that threw caution and tradition to the wind in order to try something completely new and innovative, and it only failed in a couple of ways. And that's why each game in the series has most definitely got a spot in the game collection.